Welcome to Sharon Michelle's CryptoVision. The date is December 14th, 2019 in Galveston, Texas, USA. The following is part 1 of a 2-part channeled session. In this special Christmas edition, Sharon was asked specific questions derived from JSNP4's listeners. Joe, as he's known, forwarded these to us. Since the guides were very happy and therefore more chatty than usual, we found it necessary to split up this session in 2 parts. Please note, neither Sharon nor her guides are current licensed financial advisors. The following info is for informational purposes only. Remember, all investments involve risk. It's your responsibility to do your due diligence, which should include a licensed financial advisor. We believe that all information sources should be considered when investing money into any investment. And now, part 1. Here's Sharon. The date is December 14th, 2019, in Galveston, Texas. We're here with Sharon. We just affirmed that her guides and her higher self are now here and ready. I'll confirm that just before we get started. Higher self, guides, are you here?
We are here.
Okay, thank you for coming here this evening.
I want to add, they seem very happy again today. This didn't used to be the case so much. I think the last time or so, and today they seem very happy and excited, like they have good news.
Well, let's get started with the good news then.
They're anxious to get started and share. They're pleased, very pleased that we are here, that we're asking for their assistance, that they are being recognized, and that they are able to contribute as we're asking them to do. And they seem pleased at the way, the direction things are going, so that we have something to look forward to as well. And they're sharing this with us. It's only been the last few times that they tended to be more somber and serious when they would come in. Not that they're not serious, but they seem more joyful the last few times.
Well, let's let them elaborate. What are they happy about? What can they tell us?
They say because things are changing in a way that we will soon be happy as well. They are happy for us, not you and I, but all of us with our groups and who are listening to their guidance and information. They're saying proceed with the questions.
Okay.
They're anxious to get down to business, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
It's like they've made their greetings, they've said their hellos, now it's time to get down to business.
Well, the first question is about precious metals, gold and silver and other precious metals, but those specifically. In the coming year, what can we expect as far as the price? Will it start to drop and go down, as some people feel, maybe down to the gold to the $700 level? Or
No.
Okay.
They're showing me that it will, in the short term, present, continue to go a little higher. Then it will level out for a little while, maybe drop slightly, but they're not showing me. They don't feel it's a significant drop. It's just more or less levels and is stable. And then later in the year, it will go up again, more so. Will there be a significant drop this year? They do not think so.
So it sounds like it'll stay
There's
steady.
A little disagreement, but on like how much it will drop, but they all seem to agree it won't be significant. It will just continue to rise like it has been, a little every month or so, and then it will level out.
What they're looking for is an increase.
They're seeing a leveling. There will be an immediate increase still. It has not reached the height Yet, we still see a possible high of 1600 to 1700 an ounce for gold. Then it levels out. Like if it goes to 1700, it might drop back to 16, for instance, and then level out somewhere in that range. But no significant drops. Then later, it looks like end of summer, early fall, it starts rising again. Then by 2021, if not before the end of the year of 2020, gold gets into 2000 or more. Towards the end of 2020, early 21, should be in that range of 2000, possibly more. They don't want to go past like January of 21 right now. They said there's more important things to focus attention on at the moment.
Okay, well let's talk about
That's all you need for that right now.
Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be steady for quite a while, and then
no significant drops.
no significant drops, as some cyclists have talked about, possibly gold going down to $700 and then going into another cycle.
For that, they say no, that's not happening.
And then silver. Now, silver has been extremely undervalued.
Yes. Silver continues to be grossly undervalued for at least 1 to 2 more years. It rises as gold rises, but not to the levels that it should be rising. But they're saying it's according to the plan.
What plan is that?
For more people to have access. Gold will be or silver will be in very high demand in a few years, higher than you can imagine right now. Then the rate of increase will be higher than the rate of increase on gold. Although gold will always increase and be in demand. But the demand for silver will become much higher in the future, and it will become in short supply. We believe we have stated this before. There are new technologies coming in that will be in common use within, looks like 2 to 3 years, that will put major pressure on the demand for silver and will push up the price.
Yeah, that's interesting because a futurist called Cliff High talked about his linguistics program. We're talking about in the future there being some sort of a technology that would be coming on the scene that would require silver, and people would be
silver in very high demand at that time. We have stated this previously for several years now about these new technologies, some which have been dreamt of, some which are in very early stages, and some which are yet to be dreamt of, with very high demand for the use of silver. So that in a number of years, not in the short term, silver should be bought and held on to. For when these technologies break out, there will come a time when silver will be in such high demand that its value will increase significantly to where it may even come close to the value of gold, because there are so many necessary uses for it.
So if Spirit had a choice to tell people to invest,
they need to...
Would it be silver?
Yes. Gold will increase, but the rate of increase will not increase like silver. For instance, as an example, if gold were to increase 10% a year, in a few years, silver may increase 40%, even 50% in a year, which is a much greater rate of return. It will never be as valued per ounce as gold, but it will be rate of increase far higher than gold in the future. And any who wish to invest in precious metals can afford to buy silver. Not everyone can afford to buy gold. But there will be such demand in the future that it is advisable for those involved in mining to look for more silver and mine more silver. The demand is not there yet. It probably will be at least 2 to 3 years before you see the beginnings of this pattern. But once it starts, it will increase significantly every year. The current mining potential is not enough to meet this demand, so there will be a shortage. At the same time, there is very extreme demand. So it would be wise for mining companies to search out new locations for silver mining and even new techniques to make mining more affordable. This will happen in the future out of necessity.
Can Spirit tell us what type of technology is going to be using all this silver? Is it electronic?
It's all electronic. Industrial use of silver is already there, but there is much new technology coming to the fore. Some that has been held back, some that is yet to be dreamt of or thought of, that people will be downloading in the future and putting into action. It will be used in many, many different industries. There is even a use for silver coming that has to do with the water supply, purifying water in some way. Silver has many healing uses for the human body, as well as the technological electronic needs. Silver will be much more recognized in the future for healing purposes as well. There are diseases that humans have because of a lack of silver, a lack of other minerals, but in their bodies, in their food. But silver has a property that is very valuable for healing. This will be utilized and recognized more and more in the future. And the use of silver in addressing certain ailments in humans will become very commonplace in future times. Some would say that gold also has healing qualities for the human body. We say this is true, but silver is more important for use in the human system than is gold. When people used to eat from silver utensils, they received more silver would pass through their body. But as people rarely do this anymore, they are no longer receiving this nutrient into their systems as they have in previous times where it was recognized. You're done for this for now.
Okay, well, let's go on to some cryptocurrencies. First of all, let's ask about the 12 months coming up, including December. A lot of people have been waiting for cryptocurrencies to make their move. And of course, they were waiting for gold and silver to make their move, and to some degree they did, but are being held back. And we see that cryptocurrencies have been held back. The first question:
they have been deliberately held back by governments, not just the one that you live under, but all governments, until they can put systems into place to track and control and even better understand how cryptos can be utilized in the future. It is a new technology. Most governments have not been exactly sure if they are stable, how long they will stick around, or of their use and value. And of course, how they can participate and tax in certain cases. As we have said before, there will be some cryptos in the future that will be recognized and actually used as currency. There will be other cryptos which will be utilized in a form and category more like commodities or stocks and will function extremely well in these areas. These, of course, will be open to being taxed. Which cryptocurrencies will go into which categories has not been decided yet by the governments of the world. Expect this to be happening within the next, it will not happen in 2020, but by 21, 22, 23 at the latest, most governments will be in agreement upon which categories which cryptos will fall into. But they will all recognize that cryptos play an important role in the future.
Will China allow their general population to start trading cryptocurrencies again?
Not for a while. Again, unless they can control and know what is being traded, it will not be allowed. Once there are systems in place where they can control and monitor, it will be allowed and will eventually replace their currency altogether. It will take a few years to completely replace currency. But as we have advised you before, paper currency will eventually be phased out and become worth only as old examples of currency in the past only have value because of their history as an antique, as something rare that was used in the past, but it will no longer be utilized as currency. It will take probably about, we're estimating, if things continue as they are, within 10 years, paper currency will have been phased out, for they can monitor cryptocurrency much better. This is a goal of many governments, but particularly with China.
So it sounds like we're going to a worldwide cashless society then.
Eventually, this is the beginning, and they do not have systems in place yet. There has to be infrastructure created. This will take some time, as well as public acceptance. The infrastructure has to be created first, and then gradual acceptance by the populace. Just as long ago as the 1960s, you did not have such dependency on digital money. In the 70s, the banks began to implement ATM cards and a bigger push towards credit cards, all moving towards this digital system and a way of monitoring and tracking. And gradually, even though you still use cash occasionally today for most transactions, the majority of people use their cards, their credit cards, their ATM cards. And now we are beginning to see a shift to complete digital gradually taking place. No longer can you hide your cash under your mattress for a rainy day. In some ways, this is better. If your house burns down, you don't lose all of your money. But there are trade-offs. Your money can't be burned up in a fire or lost in a hurricane as the water sweeps it all away. But it is also no longer hidden. Everything is accounted for and monitored. So in some ways it is more convenient with the new system, but privacy and secrecy are being eliminated in the process towards convenience.
Will that be a good thing or a bad thing overall?
As with everything in life, it has a negative side and it has a positive side. It is always good to focus on the positive, for then you create more positives. Be aware, but do not focus on the negatives. Take what steps are possible to utilize the best of the system and do what you can to protect yourself from the worst of the system. As you focus more and more on the positive uses, then you create these positive uses and convenience.
Coming up this year during Christmas, so around the Christmas year of 2019, will cryptos be going down from profit taking, or will they stay the same, or are they going to go up?
As cryptos begin to move up, yes, as always, there will be people taking profits while they can. We do not see large numbers of people cashing out all of their cryptos. There may be a few that do. We see more likely people will take out limited amounts in order to pay off debts they have incurred or minimal changes that are necessary for them to make. But we see the majority of money for the majority of people remaining. We see additional purchases being made. Some may cash in on a particular coin in order to buy more of another that looks more promising. There will always be some profit taking, but when this is done, individuals and companies need to be aware of tax consequences of doing so and make sure that it's worth pulling the money out.
So will the market go down in general around Christmas time in December 2019, or is it going to stay the same?
We do not see a big drop. We actually see more rises coming up towards the end of December than drops. And as these rises become more evident, you will see more investing taking place. As more and more infrastructure is brought online for people to have more uses for the crypto as a means of purchase or means of currency, it becomes more and more accepted. You start seeing in 2020 more and more people becoming aware of some of the major cryptos. This in itself is big, for if you ask people now, most people do not understand anything about cryptocurrency. Most everyone has heard of Bitcoin, but they're completely unfamiliar with other coins. In 2020, you will see this begin to change, where more and more people are becoming aware that there is more than just Bitcoin. We have listed major ones. There are others, such as Quantstamp, such as let's see. They're showing me, but I can't think of the word. These are all ones we have told you in the past will be very large in the future, very prominent in the future.
Well, let's go over a few of those. What can you tell us about Dent? How is Dent going to perform in the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, you will see Dent starting to make a rise, along with many other coins. We see many people happy with the results of their Dent. As we have said before, we see somewhat of a ceiling on how much it will rise. Then it stabilizes, and other coins which have been slower to rise will surpass the usage and the growth in value of Dent. But we do see Dent stable and holding its own for some time. We see some expansion in the uses of Dent, which contribute to its rise. Let's see, in 5 years, people who have bought Dent will still be happy in 5 years with their purchase. We don't really see people necessarily dumping their Dent to buy other coins. We see rather they're holding on to their stake in Dent, but purchasing other cryptos as well. we know that many of you are thinking of selling Dent when it gets to a higher level, then trading that investment in for something else. We do not really see it taking place in this manner. We see people happy with their Dent, holding on to it, maybe selling some, but for the most part holding on to it, but making additional investments in other coins that will eventually reach even higher value amounts. But in 5 years, we look at this, we see Dent owners still happy with their Dent. They're not dumping it, but they have made additional investments in other coins that reach a higher value in the future, but were possibly also purchased at a higher rate. But one does not affect the other. Dent will have uses that make it valuable to people to hold on to it because it is practical. This is where we see the expansion taking place in Dent long term. This is why we don't see a major sell-off in Dent long term, possibly short term, but we do not condone gambling, buying and selling continuously, trying to beat the system we see as gambling. We want to recognize solid coins that will be valuable and worthwhile for a long time and have value and usage platforms for you to use and make it worthwhile keeping long term. We see this as a safer focus.
Well, some would say there's a fine line between investing and gambling. Unless you absolutely know the outcome, it's gambling.
We see this too, to a certain extent, but there is a difference. And while we recommend wise investments, we do not recommend gambling unless it's simply temporary, for fun, not for the expectation of large gains. Everything in life, every decision in life has an element of risk. So in that respect, yes, you are right. Investing can be risky. Gambling is nearly always risky. But sometimes to get what you want, to get ahead, to make the achievements you wish in life, you have to take a risk. And some you lose, some you win. With gambling, the majority of time you lose. With risk-taking, there's always that element of loss, possibility. But we hope that when you take risks, the risk is worth it. And they're educated risks based on your knowledge, your understanding, your gut feelings, the advice of experts. This is very different than gambling. With investment, you look at track history, possibilities, many factors that educate you on, is this a risk that is possibly going to pay off? We do not recommend you do it blindly. Many people with cryptos have said this is definitely gambling. They do not believe it will ever take off. We can tell you with certainty it is all part of the process of moving into a cashless society, which the entire world is leaning towards because of its accuracy of accounting, the ability to have a solid record, and the ease of use, and the inability to hide from governments which are seeking to tax your gains. We hope this has made sense.
Yes, I think so.
Sometimes Sharon doesn't fully know what we're saying, so she gets lost sometimes and doesn't really know what we said until she rereads it or hears it later.
Let's talk about XRP. I believe it's Ripple.
Ripple is favored for a time, but then we see something happening where Ripple falls out of favor and is actually replaced by a system that works better. So even though it is popular with many people at the present time and will be for some time to come, know that at some point in a few years it will be replaced. We can clarify that in that it may merge with a different system or partner with a different system, use some aspects of its current technology, but also use new aspects with the coin company that it is merging with that improve upon its basic idea and will be far more successful than XRP alone will be able to do. The new system will be greatly expanded upon over XRP and literally replaces XRP with a system with much broader usage, which we see XRP as having some limitations. The new system will not have these limitations, so it basically will take over XRP and improve upon it drastically and have the ability built within its system to continue to expand and adapt within itself so that it continues to grow and expand into something of a much higher usage.
Okay, let's go to PPT.
Okay, Populist will grow much more in the future than XRP or Ripple will ever be able to do, because it already has built within it the ability to expand upon itself and incorporate new technologies and new usages in the future. This would definitely be something you would want to hold on to, as it will be far greater in the future than it is now. As we have said before, we have always preferred Populist to XRP, even though there are many institutions singing the praises of XRP. We see Populist as a giant in the future.
Litecoin.
Litecoin we see similar to Bitcoin as a staple, a basic coin that anyone investing in cryptos should participate in. It is not one of the coins that will have the largest growth for the long term, but it is perhaps one of the coins we would consider should be a staple to any portfolio, because it will endure and will be adaptable to many uses and will be in high demand. And at some point we see Bitcoin being less important than it is today. We would not necessarily say this about Litecoin, whereas in the past Bitcoin may have been the coin that all others were modeled after. It may have been the leader, the mentor for other coins. But at some point we see it fading in usage, dying out in popularity as other coins such as Litecoin begin to take its leadership role. This is what we see for Litecoin in the long term. It will be a coin that will endure the test of time.
Bitcoin Cash.
Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash will be a major leader in the future and will surpass eventually both the basic Bitcoin and Litecoin in value, as well as many other coins. And it will have extensive acceptance and usage in the future. 2020 will be a bit of a turning point for Bitcoin Cash, as it will start gaining in popularity by the end of 2020. This will be fairly obvious to most investors that this is a coin that will have long-term endurance. We would put this coin as well as Litecoin in our top 5 for both short-term and long-term possibilities.
Veritasium?
Veritasium, again, as we have said previously on many occasions, it has been very good for investors in the past, and maybe so for the near future, but we see its light dimming today, and we do not see that this coin will last long term. We see it falling out of favor, and we are not sure that it will be able to recover, but we do see for sure it will not recover to the strength that it has already achieved in the past. This one is fading. We would recommend when it reaches a high to get out and invest elsewhere. Educate and stay on top of this coin, as when it fails it will be sudden. Be sure to ask your own higher guidance regularly about staying in Veritasium for much longer, for its light is already fading. This we have not seen before. We have seen it doing well and then, like falling off a cliff or down a well, so to speak, people not being able to get their money, and it's sudden. But we still saw it good for the short term. Looking at it today, we see its light dimming. It's fading away. So it is going into the dying mode. It is weakening, and we do not see it coming back from that. You can stay in, but when your own guidance tells you it's time, and we say it's time to start considering and watch very, very closely what is happening with Veritasium, so you are not taken by surprise when it falls, as we have continually seen its failure.
Will there be any warning signs? What will be the warning signs?
We are warning you now. Its light is beginning to fade, which indicates it doesn't have a lot of life left. It has already begun. So this is your warning.
The spirits see
It's
that.
not failing right now, not today, but it's starting the process of failure. It's in the beginning of the end. Previously, we just advised you to be cautious of this coin, as we know it was favored by many people. It was in its full light when it had that favor. It no longer has that. We don't see it dead yet, but we see it in its last period of life, and we don't see it reversing that trend. What they just gave me now is that many times when a human dies, just before death, they appear to be doing better for a few days, and then they drop off the cliff and die within a few days. So they're showing me this will happen to Veritasium. So when you see that it looks like it's bounding back, that's your warning to sell. Get your profit and then sell, because it won't last. So be prepared. Watch it closely. If you see a big rebound that is not gradual but significant, it won't last. Take your profit and get out. We do not advise anyone to buy in order to do that, because you're taking a huge risk that it could drop before you can sell. But if you already have coins, watch for this rise. This should happen within the next 2 to 3 months, and immediately after that it drops. And when that drop happens, we don't see it coming back. We see it dead. We hope this gives you enough warning if you watch.
Yes, thank you.
It will not be a long period of big rises. So if you see a quick, significant rise, get out. We're not talking about slow, steady rise like many coins have been doing off and on this past year. We're talking about what looks to be a significant trend up. It's artificial. It's being pumped. That's your warning to get out. So they may even be pumping it by advertising it, but it's being pumped up artificially, and that would be your warning. It's time to get out. You can't wait more than a few days.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's go to a coin called Hydro.
I understand. Hydro is what we would call a utility coin. What they're showing me is Hydro, and they're saying it's a utility coin. It will have a specific use. As it gains in acceptance, it will appreciate somewhat in value, but long term, it will probably end up being a rather stable coin because it has a utilitarian purpose, and its growth in value is directly related to its acceptance in usage. But it is a good coin. We would consider it a relatively safe coin. We wouldn't necessarily recommend that this would be a coin you'd want to purchase a great many of. It's more for a utilitarian purpose and has what look to be specific usages that are convenient for people. In other words, it's not a particularly high risk investment. There will be some gain as its acceptance is, as more and more people accept the use of this coin. It will rise in value, but it's not what would be a speculative coin. It wouldn't even apply necessarily as what we would say is a solid, stable coin, but it would be closer to a stable coin than anything else. But mainly it's the utilitarian coin. It's convenient for a specific usages. And while they may, and we see this happening in the future, they may expand somewhat on what it's used for, but it's never going to be a coin that's going to greatly grow in value and have unlimited acceptability like we see happening eventually for, say, Digibyte. It's not on the same level. It has its own level and its own purpose.
Okay, well let's go on to a next one, which is Red Coin.
Red coin.
Will it ever end up making that big run up everybody's expecting?
Red coin will have some increases. It will have some solid usage. But again, we see this coin a bit like Hydro. It has a specific usage that it will be used for. As it is a little more widely accepted, it will definitely have some significant increase for a while, but we also see this coin as one that has some stability, but at some point, now this is going to be out there a ways, a few years out there, at some point it reaches a dead end. We see that it may actually merge with another coin or technology where they combine into one coin, and that coin is more widely used than red coin. But until that happens, red coin is relatively stable. It does grow somewhat in value. Let's see, is that going to happen in 2020? Yeah. You're going to see some increase in value in 2020. Not so much in 2021. Possibly 2021. We wish to add this about red coin. While we don't see long-term significant growth here, we also don't necessarily see a big loss here for those who have significant investment in red coin, because it will merge or partner and become a new entity. So it won't be like you're losing your investment. Your investment is simply transferred to the new entity that its merger or partnership creates. And then that coin we see being much stronger than red coin ever thought of being, because it's more versatile. So it looks like a more versatile coin takes its place, merges with red coin, incorporates its usage, what it's being used for, its applications, into this new entity, which is able to do that, maybe even have some improvement on that, but also have other applications of use that makes it of more widespread importance. So your investment in red coin, you're not losing it. It's simply merging into this new one. We see this as a lot of companies, a lot of coins. This technology that's going to be happening with many coins. So as we look at these in the future, we'll kind of know, is it a coin like Veritasium that's just going to drop off a cliff and be gone? Or is it going to be like red coin and a few others where it's going to merge? We shared with you in one of the last sessions another coin that was going to go through this merging or partnership process with another coin and actually strengthen its value in the future. This will happen with red coin too. Who does it merge with? We're not sure at the moment because there's more than one possibility. So we're not close enough to that end result yet to know which possibility will be decided upon. It's already being considered as a possibility for the future, but nothing is concrete yet. Nothing has been decided upon. And there are new players that will be entering into this process that have not reached out yet. So until that happens, we can't give you the result. We just know that when it does happen, we can see that the value of all coins involved increase in value quite a lot. So we want you to know this so you won't get alarmed at the prospect of red coin, as red coin is disappearing in the future. So don't be concerned with this. You will should still have your value transferred to the new entity. So when other guides have told other people doing this work that many coins will disappear, this is true. Some coins will fail completely, but many others will combine and be strengthened by that combination and the extra versatility and numerous uses that come together into one, and they will be able to survive that way, but under a new name and under a new, which then becomes a new entity.
How about a cryptocurrency called Jewel? JWL?
Jewel, okay. We actually kind of like Jewel. We see it relatively volatile, though. We see a very much of a circular motion up and down with Jewel. Like it goes up, it goes back down, but then it makes a cycle and it goes back up again. So if you can be aware that it does have in its personality, so to speak, this cycle that it follows that is significantly up, significantly down, a person paying attention to those cycles would be able to take advantage of those cycles. For instance, buy when it's in the down cycle and sell when it gets in the up cycle and begins to go down again, and then wait to repurchase till it's all the way down. This feels like a continuing cycle with this particular entity. It's part of its personality. But each time it goes up higher. It does have a lot of life. So just because it goes way down doesn't mean it dies. It has this cycle that's part of what it is that continues on and gets stronger as it continues on. In other words, the cycle goes higher every time it goes through this cycle. Each time it gets higher than the time before, but then it falls back down again. So on this one, anyone considering investing needs to pay attention to its cycles. Look at the past history, see if you can map out a cycle, because it looks very regular. The cycle doesn't look irregular, but it is volatile in that it goes significantly up and then significantly down. But it has a lot of life, so it's going to be around a while.
Okay. The next one is Cryptarium, CRPT.
Okay, Cryptarium. You've asked about this one before, but it's been a long time. We don't like this one at present. There's problems here. They're pretty major issues. We're not sure that they can work it out. These are existing in the current energy. Of course, frequently we see before it's manifest in materialization, but we see this strongly, so it's coming. We would advise be very careful of doing anything with this one at this time, because they have serious issues they have to resolve, which will keep it from progressing. And these are big, important issues. We're not sure they can resolve them. Let's see. Let's try to go further. It looks like, okay, this is one they're going to try to pump. It'll go up some. It'll have a spurt of growth, and then it fails. So it's not one you want to hodl and hold on to, because it has that spurt of growth and then it's right back to on the verge of failure. And we're not sure that it can come out of it. So I keep getting this message. Spirit keeps communicating this message to when it has this spurt of growth that's being pumped or pushed. They keep saying, don't believe it, don't believe it. So that's why I think it's a manipulation, a push to push it up so that people who know what's going on can sell and get out, take their losses. So if you're already invested, then when you see this pump, then it's time for you to get out. If you're not invested, we do not recommend. This one is doomed. So when you see the rise, don't believe it. Don't believe it. It's a lie.
Okay, thank you.
So this is Sharon speaking now. So whatever is put out there to pump it, it's a lie. Don't believe it. It's temporary.
Okay, let's move over to Tyrion, or TNT.
TNT. I wondered what TNT was. Okay, Spirit actually likes this one. They're giving me the smile they give me when they like something. And then they're showing a lot of growth coming up this year. So this one's getting ready to make a move. They're showing me that some coins will be really low and they'll just sit there really low for a long time, a few years before they really start to grow. They're showing me TNT, because I have no idea how long it's been around. They're showing me TNT is getting ready to, you should see some good growth this year with TNT. Okay. You'll be happy. They're saying you will be happy with the growth.
Okay, and the next one is, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, RIPIO or RIPIO credit. RIPIO credit.
Oh, okay. RIPIO.
RCN.
We'll just say RIPIO.
RIPIO credit.
Some of the letters could be silent, but without knowing, we'll just call it RIPIO. Spirit's saying that's not the correct pronunciation, by the way.
Oh.
I
don't know.
They're not telling me what it is. It's like there's a silent letter in there somewhere, but they're not showing me what it is. They're just saying that's not the correct pronunciation, but people know what it is. You spelled it out. Okay, Spirit, show me.
RIPIO credit.
We're very uncomfortable with this one. some good facets, some good ideas, but we're not comfortable with it. We are not comfortable recommending.
Can they elaborate?
They're giving me a sick at my stomach feeling.
Mm.
So they're saying we can't recommend. We don't like it. It's one thing they're showing me is it's very volatile, up and down, up and down, up and down. There's the energy is too scattered around it. There's no stability at all. Doesn't have a solid foundation. It's based on an idea, but not a solid foundation. They're missing parts to make it work. So unless they can pull these parts together, which they haven't done yet, and they're telling me they're not even working on it, there's no clear direction. There needs to be a solid foundation and clear direction in philosophy and intent, and it doesn't have that. It's like they've got 3 people and they're all going in different directions and they're not working together to create a whole. It's fragmented in like 3, maybe 4 different directions. So there's no cohesiveness involved. So that is making it weak. That's why they don't like it. They see it as weak. They're saying it has no strength. It has no real solid purpose. It's like people involved have all these different ideas that they want to take it in these different directions, but they're not working together, so it's not coming together. So it's like united we stand, divided we fall. That's what they're telling me about this one. They're divided, they're not united. They need to have a united purpose and intent and idea, and they don't have that. The different principles involved in the creation of this do not have that unity. So it's like it's doomed to fail unless they can come together. And they're not, even when I ask them to go into the future, they just show them getting further apart. So it ends up, unless something major changes, it ends up dissolving and falling down. I literally see this one going this way, this one going this way, and this one, and they're all going out from the center and they're all going down because they need to all pull towards the center and up where they're all going the same direction. They can bring the different facets in, but they need to be combined in one direction, and they're not doing that. They're dissipating all the energy off into these other directions instead of working together. So it's not going to work like this. So we can't recommend it.
Okay.
And I've never heard that one before, so I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just giving you what Spirit is telling me and showing me.
Okay. The next one is hash graph.
Okay, hash graph. Show me hash graph. Tell me about hash graph. They're showing me a lot of light around it, which tends to be really positive. But they're showing the light moving in like very extremely slow motion. So it's not bad, but I think people, they're nodding their head yes at what I'm about to say. People need to be very cautious with this one. If it's super cheap, buy a little bit, but be prepared to wait a long time before you really see much growth, because it's moving super, super slow, even though it has a lot of light, a lot of possibilities to it. Okay, they just said that's correct. I said it correctly. Okay. But they do kind of like it. It's like it's not fully formulated yet. It's like it's an idea, but they're still working on creating the foundation. The foundation isn't there yet. It's all these ideas that are good ideas. They are taking their time. They're not rushing it. I don't see a lot of division between people involved in it. It all looks positive. It's just going very slowly. So it's going to be a while on this one.
And lastly, let's talk about Loki. Loki.
Okay, Loki. We've looked at Loki before, but I don't remember. Spirit, what did you see with Loki? Show me. Tell me. There's another one. They kind of like it. They gave me a smile. But again, I see this light and it's just drifting. It's going very, very slow. It's even slower than the last one. But it is good. It's actually better than the last one because they gave me a big smile plus all the light. But it's just like super slow. Why? What is the deal with being so slow but good? There's an element they're missing. And what are you showing me? What does this mean? You have to be clearer. What are you showing me? This is so weird what they're showing me. It's almost like at the moment it's in a pre-birth stage. It's not ready to be born yet. It has to gestate a little bit more, and then it's fully born into what it's going to be. And then it looks really, really good, but it's not ready to do that yet. It needs more time for the gestation period, if that makes any sense. Like I said, I know absolutely nothing about that coin other than I've heard its name before. So I have no idea what they're telling me exactly, but that's what they're showing me. So I have to just say what they're giving me. And it's not ready yet. It's getting close. I think it will be ready in 2020. They're saying maybe. Okay. 2021, will they be ready to go full force? Yes. Maybe the end of 2020, or 2021, it'll be fully together and it'll have more power and you can start seeing more movement. Until then, it's like it's in this gestation stage. I don't know any other way to describe what they're showing me. It's like it's not ready to be born yet. And the womb has to open first before it can be born. And it hasn't opened yet. That's what they're showing me. It's in that, it's still in the womb. And it's not ready to be born yet. But it looks like maybe by the end of 2020, early 21, it will be. But early 2020, no, they said it's not ready yet. Because when I first said 2020, they said no. And they said, well, maybe to the very end it might be. It's cutting it close. But don't expect anything early of any significance with this one. And again, in the beginning, and they're showing me again, it's like there's an element that's missing yet. And still, and it has to have time to form and to be integrated into the whole before that whole can be born. That's coming, but that aspect will be happening in 2020, where they're incorporating this missing element that they're still trying to figure out right now. They can't incorporate it yet because they're not quite sure exactly what it is they still need. They have an idea, but it's not formulated enough to where they can actually pull it in and go get it. Has to be formulated more. And then they can get it and incorporate it, and then it will be ready to be born. Okay.
Okay, let's switch some gears here and talk about a few non-crypto related items.
Can we take a break here?
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Okay.
This concludes part 1 of this 2-part channel series. If you're interested in more channel sessions with Sharon Michelle, you can log on to www.patreon.com/Cryptovision. Or if you're interested in a personal reading from Sharon Michelle, simply log on to www.evolutionaryjourneys.com. Note that the website is under construction, but still works for scheduling appointments. For Sharon and Jared, we wish you a happy holiday season, and with love, light, and clarity, we bid you farewell. Welcome to Sharon Michelle's Cryptovision, The following is part 2 of a two-part channeled session conducted on December 14th, 2019 in Galveston, Texas, USA. In this special Christmas edition, Sharon was asked specific questions derived from JSNP4's listeners. Joe, as he's known, forwarded these to us. Since the guides were very happy and therefore more chatty than usual, we found it necessary to split up this session into two parts. So this is the second part. Please note, neither Sharon nor her guides are current licensed financial advisors. The following information is for informational purposes only. All investments involve risk. It's your responsibility to do your own due diligence, which should include consulting a licensed financial advisor. We believe that all information sources should be considered when putting money into any investment. And now part 2. Here's Sharon.
Again,
Okay,
why are they so happy? Start with that.
So we took a little break. Sharon was saying that the guides also took a break. They talked amongst themselves, and when they came back, I asked, well, why were they so happy about our future or about the session? And so, Sharon, do you want to go into what you're receiving from them as to why they're happy?
Yeah, they're happy that we're doing this on a regular basis. They're mainly happy that they're being asked to participate. They said it's very hard for them on the other side to want to help, and they're not able to because no one is listening. And so, of course, we're listening, we're asking, but it's not just like me that's asking, because when we get the question list together, we ask the Patreon people what questions they would like to ask, because we can come up with some questions, but we can't come up with all the questions. I'd run out of questions after a while if I had to do all the questions. So we always ask our Patreon people, what questions do they have? And then we ask Spirit. Sometimes there are questions that have been asked before, but, a lot of times they're new ones. We get some really great questions, things I would never even think to ask about because it's maybe not in my realm of life experience to ask about some of those things. Like, for instance, someone asked recently about the telescope that they're trying to put in Hawaii, and all the natives are up in arms about it. I was totally unaware anything like that was going on. So we asked Spirit, and they answered that there would be some kind of a compromise where the natives weren't thrilled, but it was something they could live with, and it was something the government could live with also. So we get all kinds of different questions. We get questions on world events, and of course we started off with primarily the crypto questions, but gold and silver and the banking institutions and all of these other things people ask about too, because this is what they're dealing with every day. Sometimes they'll just tell me stuff that I didn't even ask about. I may be asking about a whole different question, whole different subject, and they'll answer that question, and then they'll throw something in that I didn't ask, but something they want to get out there. So the more we do this, the more they are doing things like that from time to time too. But they said their purpose is to help us and to guide us, and they can't do that if no one is asking and no one is listening. And so we've been doing it long enough now. They know that people are listening and people are giving credit to them and thanking them and appreciating the work that they're doing. So the last 2 or 3 sessions when they come in, they've been like really happy and excited. So some of that is because they see positive trends coming for most of us or all of us. And so they're happy to be able to give us good news. But then they're also happy that they're doing the work they're supposed to be doing, and we're giving them that opportunity to do that. And people, not just Jared and myself, but our Patreon members too, they're also giving them and expressing their appreciation to them and paying attention, because if they weren't paying attention, they wouldn't be coming up with more questions every week for us to ask. So we do try to do this once a week. Sometimes we can't, but if we can't, we try to make up for it in some other way. But our goal is to try to do this once a week. And so I know that a lot of you listening are Joe's Patreon people, which I reached out to Joe and asked if his people had any questions they really wanted answers to. So that's, of course, what we're doing at this particular session. Some of the questions you had are questions they've already answered previously to our Patreon members, but it doesn't hurt to ask them again because you're, of course, a new audience for them. But let's see, what else are they happy about? Oh, they're not answering me now. They say we're ready to get down to business now, so they're ready to get going. But before we go on, I want to add something else. Them being happy when they come in is kind of different, because when we first started up until just recently, they were always kind of somber and real serious when they would come in. And it's just the last 2 or 3 sessions that we've done that they've come in being all happy and excited. And again, part of that is because a lot of things are getting, with the new energies and a lot of things that have been held back, they're getting ready to change and to move forward. So they're really excited about that, and to be able to give us things that we'll be happy to know about, to give us more hope and that kind of thing. So before we start answering questions, I just want to remind all of you, go in and talk. We all have guides. Some guides we have in common. We all have our own individual guides. Don't be afraid to ask them anything you want to ask them. Or if you want us to ask, we can do that too. But just ask, and then just be meditative and silent and just let them give you the answer. If you're not used to doing it, sometimes it's difficult in the beginning, but you get used to it. It gets easier. Just like we've been doing this, about 1.5 years now? Maybe a little more than that. And because we're doing it every week, the same thing, it's getting much easier for us to do. The answers come in more easily and more quickly. And a lot of times I can actually go longer where we can ask more questions than what I could do in the beginning, because it took more concentration and focus in the beginning than what it does now. Because now, after 1.5 years of doing this almost every week, my system is more trained, and they're more trained, so they come in more quickly now. As soon as we ask for them, they start coming in. So anyway, they're back at the conference table now, and they're saying it's time to get back to work and get down to business. So
Okay. Well, one of the major things, of course, in everybody's life is the monetary system, since it affects everyone. And here in America, there's been talk about negative interest rates coming to America. President Trump has been trying to get the Federal Reserve to drop the interest rates down to 0, maybe even negative interest rates. Does Spirit see negative 0 or negative interest rates coming to the United States in 2020?
we've answered this before in previous sessions. The answer is no. They may agree temporarily to lower the rates slightly more so than they have done thus far. But as far as 0%, no, we do not see this. As far as negative interest rates, which we know a lot of people are very concerned about, and it has happened in other countries, as you know, we do not see this happening here in the United States. If it does, it would be a long time into the future. Short time, the next couple of years or so, no, we do not see something like this taking place. Your president is doing everything he can to keep the economy healthy and stable and not resort to such methods of going down to 0 or negative, or going to very high interest rates. He feels interest rates are high enough as they are, so he is fighting them being raised, but it is also not healthy for the economy for them to go down to zero or minus. That would not be in the best interest of the people. So we see much determination to not allow that to happen. And actually, even the Federal Reserve does not really want to do that either, because the system would crash, and they know it, and they don't want that. That would not be good for them either. So that is not going to be allowed. And speaking of the economy, we actually see, despite what many of your economists have predicted, we do not see a huge decline in the economy. What we do see are people becoming more self-sufficient. We see people working to get out of debt and stay pretty much out of debt, and going back to a mindset of being more self-sufficient and less dependent on credit. So will this bring major adjustments in your economic system? Yes, it will. Will it cause it to fail? No, we do not see this. We have been pushing people for several years, those who will listen to us, to start eliminating their debt. What will crash the economy if and when that happens has nothing to do with interest rates. It has to do with other types of natural disasters or calamities that have the potential to occur. We are working in the spirit side to prevent this as much as possible and to work with the natural forces in the earth. We have many of us, not in this group, but in other groups. This is what they do to focus on protecting Mother Earth and cleaning up Mother Earth and steering the energy that could erupt into major disasters, steering this energy into smaller disasters so that the energy can dissipate in a way that, yes, may not be pleasant, but is safer for the greater number of people for the greater length of time to dissipate the extra energy that the earth is building up in order to delay and prevent as much as possible major disasters from being as extreme as they would otherwise be. We are members of us that are continuing to do this. This is their purpose. Our purpose that is here with you today is to help you with your questions that affect your immediate life. This is what the group of us who work with Sharon are here to do.
Okay, well, that's good news. The other thing that affects a lot of people is the political state of affairs. Of course, that also affects finances as well.
Yes, the political state of affairs is very much directly related to the economic rulership of the earth.
So will what's called the deep state, be held accountable for their decades of criminality? Will we start seeing arrests and prosecutions of high level?
It will still be a while. There is more information that is coming out. With the astrological aspects you have been having for the last couple of years and will continue to have for, we estimate, the next 8 years, secrets will be unable to remain hidden. So secrets are coming out, but as you are aware, but there are many more secrets that have yet to come out. As these secrets continue to come out, it will get to the point where it will be impossible for anyone to continue to sugarcoat them or gloss over them or even lie about them. The truth is coming out. This is the cycle of time that you're in, and it is already happening. When more truths come out, and the extent of the lies and the corruption become so strong that no one can deny any longer that it exists or where the source of it is, then you will see the arrests taking place. There will be, rather than a lot of arrests, many of the people who have been responsible are taken out in other ways, and this has already begun. You have already seen some of those responsible. This has already happened. There will be many more. Some in positions of power will have scandals that come to light, and they will resign in order to keep from having them fully exposed or having to be responsible for their actions. They will try to resign and just disappear. Others will die. You have also seen this happening in the last couple of years, where people that seem fine one day, they just up and die and they're gone. And this is happening for them to avoid prosecution. They know it is coming. There will also be people who literally commit suicide in order to avoid public humiliation and prosecution. And then there will be a few that may actually even be assassinated. So this will limit the number of people that will be held responsible, because they will choose, and some have already chosen to do this in the past and are choosing to do this in the future when they are exposed. They will take the easy way out and just leave. Most of them who have the ability to make it happen will do this. So you will not see the arrests that many would like to see, but you will, as these people remove themselves from positions of power by one method or another, you will see changes being made in legislation that will prevent this type of gross corruption from taking place in the future. New regulations will be enforced and modified in some extent to prevent these type of things from happening in the future. So the situation will be corrected, but you will not have the wide-scale publicized prosecutions that many people are hoping for, because the problem is far too large. But the primary people responsible are going to be choosing to take themselves out rather than be prosecuted, in order to save their families the embarrassment of the public humiliation and the danger of even more of their secrets coming out during their prosecution and the investigations leading to that. They will choose this easy way out. For in not all cases, but in most cases, their families are not knowing participants. They have benefited from the corruption, but they are not knowing participants. So these individuals will take this route in order to spare the stain against their families. So there will be some that will be prosecuted, but the bigger players will take the other way out. And as we have said before, some have already done so, and some will choose to do so and have already made this decision that if they are exposed, this is what they will do.
What sort of time frame? Over the next couple of years, or will we start to see
You will
this?
see some acceleration in 2020, and it will be an ongoing process. And by 2025, the bulk of these people should have been removed one way or another. And the new procedures, it's not all legislation. Some is just procedures put in place that would prevent these type of things from happening again in the future. You will see major media consequences where the media will change and has to change. And some of what Obama put in place that made it legal for the media to project propaganda, which they have been oh so willing to do without any checks or balances. There will be rules and regulations put into place that will require the media to go back to fair and honest reporting once again. And if they do not, there will be consequences for them.
Okay, well, that's good news then.
So there will be many in the media who will lose their jobs, who refuse to change and go along with these new requirements. But there will be others even better who will take those jobs, to where you see a return to honest reporting once again, to where the standard is honest reporting and not ratings or ad money controlling what can be said and can be discussed. There also will be new regulations for people investing and having major shares in media outlets and newspapers, where they won't be able to influence these institutions with their money to print their mindset and political bias. This change will come to. This we see closer to 4 to 5 years away, where there will be limitations on their ability to control organizations or media through their investments. There will always be some who try, but there will be consequences for those who do.
Because it's part of the question that Joe's people have asked, let's briefly talk about President Trump.
Okay.
And Spirit has stated emphatically that there will be no other candidate. Basically, Trump is going to be president again and reelected in 2020.
This is true. As we advised you before he announced his candidacy, he is the one that we spoke of then. We advised at that time he will be president for 2 terms. And the person who follows him, regardless of political party, will be of the same mindset and belief system of strengthening the American people first. And he will continue the policies that Trump has begun. And at that time, Trump will assist by being in some type of an advisory role to this president. In what year would that be? 2024 election? And that person will also serve 2 terms. This will enable America to get back to being America again, instead of this unrecognizable place it has become. We have continued to state that this is the president that we chose as being the only one at the time who had the strength, the energy, and the knowledge and determination and loyalty to the country to be able to turn things around from the direction it has been going down in for many years. This nation was created by the advice from Spirit, from its founders. Yes, they were not perfect, as many have claimed, but the idea for this country and its standards came from us in spirit, and we are still working in spirit to get this country back to its early beginnings. We are not resting in this endeavor, but more of you need to ask for guidance and help to help bring this about. Trump is the president for this time, the only one who could have done the job. And when his presidency is nearing completion, halfway through the next term, you will see signs of who will follow him. And this person will continue the job that he began. Just because the opposition is so strong at present doesn't mean that this destiny has changed. This destiny is not only Trump's destiny, but this is the destiny of the United States as well. And as you throw off those that have been restricting your freedoms and attempting to take away your freedoms, as you succeed with this, you will see countries around the world following this same standard and activity to return to their national basics and foundations and pride in country, in themselves, and in service to God by whatever name you call him.
Okay. Well, of course, we're in a energy cycle that's causing large disruptions on the planet, both with volcanoes and earthquakes and volcanism, but
And this will continue. That's why there are a great many of us in spirit working together to try to mediate the intensity of these issues and spread it out into smaller eruptions, but more of them. The pressure has to be released, but it is safer for humanity and safer for the earth itself if this pressure can be released through multiple smaller eruptions and earthquakes, even tsunamis, than to have it happening with major ones erupting. That some of these have the potential they could destroy life as you know it. We are working very strongly in spirit to mediate this so it does not get to that level. We have been doing this for many years now, and as the energy is increasing, we are putting even more energy into trying to mitigate some of the damages. We need those of you who understand what needs to be done to visualize the earth clean, safe, quiet, and not virgin land necessarily, but pristine conditions, clean, safe waters, strong forests, the proper amount of rainfall at the proper times in proper places. The more of you that gather together and visualize this on a regular basis, the more potential there is to mitigate possible damages. As heavenly bodies draw close to the earth, from their power and their magnetism, create turbulence on the earth, turbulence in humanity, turbulence in the earth itself. Much of the turbulence in humanity is simply a reflection of the turbulence that is being caused by heavenly systems that are affecting the earth. So as there are rumblings within the earth, there are rumblings with humanity. Will you see earth changes? Yes, definitely, but we are trying to mitigate how it happens so that it is not an entire climatic total change, but a gradual change. As these changes are happening within the earth, changes are happening within humanity. Remember, humanity is waking up. Humanity everywhere is waking up to the root reality of energy, the reality of life. The earth is part of this reality. The earth is waking up. As you wake up, you make changes. You readjust your life to fit the new understandings that are becoming clear to you as you wake up. The earth, as a part of you, is simply doing the same thing as you rearrange your life circumstances to fit your new understandings. The earth is doing the same. As you cleanse yourself, your bodies, your belief systems, the earth will also be cleansing itself. So as you visualize your surroundings, yourself, your life, the earth around you, visualize all of these changes happening in a very harmonious way rather than a destructive way. The destructive way happens when you resist the change that's being pushed forward. As American citizens are demanding for America to be first and wanting to change things and change the priorities of the nation, where they are first, you will see politically those who reject this idea. These are the ones that are creating violence, that are creating disharmony in the earth, because they have not yet awakened to the necessity that if you do not take care of your own first, you cannot fix the rest of the world. There is an old saying you have, charity begins at home. First, you take care of that which is your personal responsibility, then your neighborhood, then your city, your county, your state, your country. And when that is fixed, then you can show by example and teaching others how to fix theirs. But you cannot fix theirs when you haven't fixed yours at home first. Trump is simply doing what we in spirit are guiding him to do. So those of you who do not like Trump, what you do not like is Trump the man, not Trump the president, not Trump the man that is our servant. For make no mistake, he is our servant. He is doing as much as he can to do what we are guiding him to do. Sometimes the forces against him are too great, and he has to make compromises temporarily. But that is his direction, and this is why he was selected. He had the strength to do this. We would have liked that he would have done this earlier in his life, before things got this bad. But like many of you, you put off things you know or you're guided by spirit that you should do in favor of your personal objectives. But there comes a time you can't ignore your path any longer. This is what happened with Trump. We were pushing him towards this end many years ago, but he didn't feel ready. He didn't feel the need was that great yet. He had his own family to provide for and his employees. He wasn't sure he could do the job justice, but at some point he realized what a disaster previous presidents were doing to this country. And he came to the realization if he was ever going to do it, it had to be now. And he made the decision, again, with constant pressure from us over a number of years to do so. He finally made the decision to do so. If he had done it sooner, the opposition against him would not be as strong, because the system wouldn't be as bad as it was when he finally got in there. But we are giving him lots of support and strength, as are many of you, so that he can continue this job through completion. This will be what he goes down in history for, not his hotels, his construction, but for turning around this country back to its original goals. And we are not abandoning him. We are simply giving him all the strength that spirit can muster so that he does not give up under this constant barrage of resistance against him. His next term will start off somewhat difficult as well, but it will be easier than this term has been. And the second half of the next term, he will be able to accomplish many great things, and he will be receiving recognition for this. And he will continue to mentor the person who follows him, who will also be there for 2 terms, to get this country back on track, to be the beacon of light in the world that it has been for most of its history. Nothing is perfect, but the ideal of this nation has been successful and needs to remain this way. Those have been resisting because of misguided information and their own personal power will and have been slowly being removed from power. This is not only in the government, But you will also see a change in corporate America and major businesses that have been driving the politics of this nation for their own selfish benefit and greed. There will be an awakening taking place, which has already begun in the leaders of many of these multinational corporations that are controlling the world, to where profits for stockholders and big salaries for themselves that are beyond anything that anyone needs. Their philosophy will start changing as they wake up and start listening to our guidance as to why they were put in these positions of power in the first place. It was not for their own self-aggrandizement. It was to serve the people they are responsible for. This has been the purpose of leaders, wise leaders, from the time of the beginning of humanity. Not to serve for their own selfish purposes and greed, but to serve the people they are responsible for. As this awakening takes place in these leaders, you will see corporate philosophy, corporate motives changing to reflect this responsibility towards those they are responsible for, which includes employees, but also includes all other businesses that they have to interact with, as well as the environment that they do business in, their communities, their nations. And you will begin to see them no longer raping the land and taking advantage of those less fortunate. Within 10 years, you should have seen a very big change in the attitudes of these corporate leaders as well as political leaders, because over this 10-year period that started a year or two ago, all their secrets will be exposed, and the behavior will not be allowed to continue any longer. In addition to that, as they're waking up, they will not want to continue those practices anymore that service only their own greed. Did you have more you wish to know?
That covers pretty much President Trump. I think the main question was whether or not he was going to be reelected, which means that this impeachment
We have said this many times.
was wasting time, as Spirit has said.
Yes, as we have said, this whole process since he was first elected has been for no other purpose than to waste time and deflect attention away from their wrongdoing. They don't really expect to be able to remove him from office. They hope they can. They hope to turn public opinion against him. It may have happened with a few, but in reality, it is waking some of their own up to their true motivations of being power mongers and greedy and selfish and trying to maintain their power rather than doing what's good for the nation. As we have been telling you for the last 15 years, this power change has to happen or this world has no future. And this is not in alignment with the spiritual plan for this planet or for your people. This has to change. There are those on this planet that are trying to bring about change and awareness. And some of what they are doing is correct, but some of what they're doing is being taken to such an extreme that it is not beneficial to the planet. And with this, we are speaking for much of what is happening on the west coast of the U.S. in relationship to planetary things. It is also happening in other areas as well, but the west coast of the U.S. is where it is most severe. We always say in spirit, you cannot become obsessed. You have to maintain the middle road. You can't go to one extreme either direction. So speaking of the earth, you can't go in the direction of total destruction of the earth, but you also cannot go in the direction of trying to protect something to the extreme that you actually do more harm. In this, we are speaking with the forest management as an example. They have prevented proper management of the forests, which have created more intense fires, more of them, more frequent, which will in turn create even other types of ecological disasters in the future, all because they have gone to the extreme in trying to do something that was initially good. You must practice moderation in all things to be totally in alignment.
Well, this brings us up to California, and of course you touched on the fires that they had there. Of course,
these are continuing because
the question
they
is,
have not and refuse to listen to the correct solutions for the problem. They have gone to the extreme and become obsessed and are not playing the middle ground. If they were in the middle ground, they could see the reason on both sides and make an appropriate choice. They are no longer in the middle, so they are out of alignment. They have become obsessed with overkill, and overkill creates just that. They are killing the forests they want to protect.
so these fires will continue
Until they wake up to their error.
Now, there's a company called PG&E, which is a power company. They've been cutting out the power. What exactly is going on with PG&E? Are they doing this, cutting the power off because they think it's causing fires, or is there something else behind that?
There is more behind that. They are not so aware that they are doing it to protect the forests. They are doing this because they have not kept up with their infrastructure. They do not have, their facilities are dated, are not in good condition, cannot handle the heavy loads required. And so they're cutting off because they're being overloaded, because, again, this is a case of corporate greed. Instead of taking their wealth they have accumulated and putting it back into the service of the people, they have instead taken this wealth and put it in the hands of a few to live like kings, while the company is disintegrating around them. And instead of keeping up with the infrastructure, the growth, the outdated equipment, as it becomes outdated, and keeping things in a good working order, they did not reinvest into the company what it needed to be able to provide the proper service. Now it has gotten so bad, it would take huge amounts of money, which they have squandered on personal greed, in order to rebuild the infrastructure. So they do not have the money to rebuild. Had they been doing so as the need arose and reinvesting profits back into the company, they would not be in this situation. So this is simply a question of consequences for greed and bad management and their inability to keep up with the demand.
Well, my question is they shut the power off ahead of what they considered to be a fire hazard and shut off thousands of people, whole areas off from power.
Because they were looking out after the company and not the service to the people.
So is it possible that they did this because they were worried that it would be claimed, as it was shown before, that their power line caused a fire? They called it the campfire. But it was later found out that it was actually
self-protection.
A power line, which would make sense if the power company...
And this is a problem throughout their power lines because they are in decline.
So they might be being overloaded.
Yes.
And their transformers might be overloaded.
Exactly.
And that would cause a fire.
So they have to shut it down.
So they're shutting it down so that no one can claim
this is why
that it was caused by them.
Right. This is why we say they have not kept up with the infrastructure that they need to provide the service. So when there is heavy demands, it overloads and it will create fires, and they know this. Mm-hmm. So if they know there's a fire, yes, they're shutting it down early because they don't want to be blamed because it will cost them. They can be sued and held accountable. But also because their lines are in such disrepair, it could create even more destruction if they don't shut them down. They're not concerned about the people they serve, the communities they serve. Their concern only is for their own survival.
Okay, well,
You could say their mentality is that of a slumlord. They let the properties deteriorate to the point that they're total slums and they can't squeeze another dollar out. And then they sell them for someone else to sink money into repair. That's their philosophy. Get every dime out that you can without upgrading or putting anything back in. This is the philosophy of the people at the top. Their philosophy should be they are there to serve their community and they're allowed to make a fair profit, but they're also responsible for keeping everything in working order and up to date so that they can serve and be reliable and be safe. But most corporate leaders and political leaders have forgotten that tenet of real leadership and the trust that has been given to them to put them in those positions of power. And if they had it when they started, they have forgotten long ago. And it has become a question of their own self-entitlement and superiority and greed and power with no respect for the communities and people they serve. This ideology has been rampant for some time in this country, and it has continued to get worse till we have gotten to the situation we see today. This is what has to change. And of course, politics is in the position it's in for the same mentality and the same opinion by these companies who lobby in Washington or on a state level, even on a city level, to retain their positions of power by keeping their elected officials who give them that power in office, no matter how corrupt they are. So in order to drain the swamp, it's not just a political issue. This we want to stress. It exists in corporate America. Not your little corporations so much that are barely managing to survive. Your big multinational companies who do only what's good for the bottom line for the owners, and they care nothing about the community they serve or the people they employ or the nation that they are a part of.
okay, well, thank you for that. Our final question touches back on the weather and earth changes. Between now and 2020, or December of 2020, I guess the next 12 months, is there any kind of weather, let's start with the United States, weather or earth changes that people should be aware of and prepare for? The question was deadly winter and earth changes.
Well, we advised you that this will, previously, that this again will be a very cold winter. And because of this, there will be much flooding in the spring and early summer, which will create many disasters and problems. This we see as the major issue for 2020. We see water everywhere, water flooding, even in places where it is very rare or hasn't even happened before. This is widespread, and not just in the U.S., but many other nations as well. This trend is continuing for, most likely, it isn't long term. It's not like this is going to be this way for the next 50 years. This is more likely for 2, 3, 4 years. The key is to figure out ways to take advantage of this extra water and store it for use in the future. Because after you have these periods of heavy storms and water, you will then have a period where for a few years it will be a little warmer than usual. You will not have the severe winters as widespread, so there will not be as much flooding from the mountains. So the rivers will be lower, the groundwater will be lower. So this extra water needs to be captured rather than wasted. So communities need to make plans to divert the floodwaters to areas where they can. And some communities have done this. Others have not, but there need to be ways to take this runoff and divert it into storage pools or lakes to where it can be used when we go through periods, which you will, where you do not have as much rain and there's more demand for water.
This will affect agriculture and food
Yes,
production?
most definitely. So this is another thing, as we have advised you recently. Everyone needs to think about, for more than one reason, because of the lack of quality and nutrients and freshness of what you purchase in your supermarkets. You need to devise a strategy where you can grow at least some of your vegetables and your food on your own property. And there have been many advances in systems and technology where you can install these systems in a small space, even on city patios, and be able to grow enough that is sufficient that you don't have to purchase a lot from the supermarket. And then you have the added advantage of having fresher, healthier food. Those who have land or a big enough lot where you can have a garden, plant fruit and nut trees, by all means do so. But even those who do not have that can do a lot by acquainting themselves with this technology, which is readily available if you seek it out. The vertical gardening, the tub gardening, even gardening in bags. It doesn't have to be expensive systems, but anything you can do to provide for yourselves ahead of time is going to make this period of time when fresh fruits and vegetables are more scarce. Even canned items will become more scarce because where do they come from? From the farms, from the fresh fruits and vegetables. So those will become scarce too, but those you could buy ahead of time in order to plan and then get your systems in place. It will not become critical for maybe another year, but then it will reach the point of becoming very critical. So educate yourself now and plan ways to start putting these systems in place to provide at least some of your own food, knowing it will be more nutritious, and change your eating habits some if necessary. Because as we have been saying for some time now and warning you, the food you eat will reach a point where it gives you no nutrition and may even be harmful to yourself. So find ways to provide at least some of that for yourself.
Okay, well, any final words for Joe's listeners?
Is
before
that
we-
all of the questions?
That was all the questions for
Okay.
JSNet4's folks. Any final words for them?
What they're saying is, we are here to help you. Trust us. Believe us. What we share is for one purpose only, to be to you and get acquainted with your own guides. Get accustomed to doing the exercise that Sharon has put out there for you to do, asking yes and no questions, to start getting more of your own answers with any question that comes up that you need to ask. Should I do this? Should I do that? And trust that we are there to guide you. We are here to guide you through Sharon and to guide Sharon and Jared as well. This is part of their purpose, because Sharon can hear a little easier from us than many of you, but most of you have the ability to hear us yourselves. Just get into practice of just start with asking yes and no questions, and it will evolve from there if you do it regularly. Trust that inner guidance that is there in each of you, that part of God that resides in the center of each of you. It is what connects all of us to the God force, connects all of us to each other. As all of you, all of us, the earth, the animals, everything in it, we are all one. The ancients didn't have someone teach them what berry to eat and what berry not to eat, or what green plant to eat, or what green plant not to eat, or what plant would fix a certain ailment and what one would cause death. They trusted spirit. They tuned into that oneness, and the plants spoke to them. This is how they learned. All of you can learn this same procedure. Is this food good for you? Is this vitamin good for you? Is it not good for you? Get in the habit of doing this and following. Trust the guidance you get, each of you. All of you with practice have the ability to, at the bare minimum, get answers for your own health and benefit. Practice these things.
Okay, well, with that, I want to thank the guides for sharing their insights with us, and we'll wrap this up. For all of those at JSNIPS4's forum, we want to say happy holidays to you, and we hope you have a safe and loving time with your family and friends during this time.
Spirit wants to say one thing before they leave. They want to thank all of you, because this is a new audience for them, for allowing them to answer your questions and to speak to you through Sharon.
Okay, very well.
You can always tell who is speaking, or if it is Sharon speaking on what we are showing her, she will say I. But if it is us speaking, we always say we, because we are many, but we are one, and we are one with all of you. So we just want to say thank you for allowing us this opportunity to share and to maybe help you as well. They're gone.
This concludes part 2 of this 2-part channel session conducted on December 14th, 2019. If you're interested in listening to more of Sharon's channel sessions, log on to www.patreon.com/CryptoVision. Or if you're interested in a personal reading with Sharon, log on to www.evolutionaryjourneys.com. The website's under construction at this time, but the scheduling part still works. For Sharon and Jared, we wish you a happy and safe holiday season. With love, light, and clarity, be well, everyone.